Right, welcome back everybody to Dave's Garage. So today's episode, as promised, is we're going to start sorting out the gaps on the boot lid and make that fit nicely. Please like and subscribe as usual. As I mentioned on the last video, it does help push the videos along and hopefully push on the algorithm so the channel gets some more views and can grow even further. We're over the 8,000 subscribers now, so that's fantastic news. So big thank you for everybody who does subscribe, and please, those watchers and not subscribers, please do subscribe. You'd be amazed how every single subscription makes such a big difference. So I hope you enjoy the video. There's a few things we've got to do before we can actually start on the gapping to try and get things settled down as best we can, and we'll crack into that right now. Right, so use my specialized key. Get the boot open. So you'll see we have a boot rubber now, so that's good. This will help because where the hinges are, they're so far apart. There's a little bit of flex in the boot, so as the boot closes, I can push up there and be down there, what have you, just because of the boot rubber. So it's good to have the rubber in place. So the first thing we want to do is get the boot sitting as best as we can before we start attacking it with the grinder. So that means messing with the hinges. There's a little bit of play on the hinges we can use. So obviously we've got the play on those fixings. There's also underneath here somewhere, it's a bit hard to see, there's two bolts there that hold the hinge in place. There's a bit of swivel on them as well to give us height to mess around with. So that's what we'll do first, get that sorted, and then we'll start messing with the actual gaps themselves. Right, hopefully this camera angle will get you seeing, hopefully you'll see most of what I'm trying to achieve here. So with the boot latch down, we're a little high there, bang on there, a little high there. So I think both sides, both hinges need to be dropped just a tad. Bring these corners down just a little bit. Got an area here which sticks out, so that's just going to be a simple case of hitting that with a spoon or the big rubber mallet just to bring that in there. This side's not too bad, a bit high there, so it's just backwards and forwards now to get things to settle in as best we can. So let's get on with that first. There's my special key gun. What's that already? I bet it's in the boot. Can I get a finger? Oh, there we go. Finger will do. Right. Spanners. Okay, so still a little high here, even though the hinge is all the way down, but we're good all the way along there. Got a nice flow across from the body line down, so that's nice and flat straight across there. Same there. So we come down a little bit there, and that's just a case of knocking it down. Simple as that. Yeah, lovely. That's nice along there now. You've got a nice flow to the bodywork. So, lift it up and drop it back down again. Yeah, nice. A little high over here, just on the corner. Curiously, that's put the whole lid slightly over to the left, so we need to adjust that on the hinges. Let's get on with that. Okay, let's see how we get on now. Okie doke, so hopefully you'll be able to see now the boot is fitting nice and flush along there, nice down the edge there and around the corner there. Same over this side, we've got it fitting nice down there, and along the edge is much better, it's following that profile around better, and our corners and everything is all nicely flushing up with the rest of the bodywork. So that's a good start. So next thing to do now is strip the paint off the edges of where we want a gap all the way around, and then start messing with the gapping. And to do that we'll use our poly strip discs because we know how well they work. Right now then, the purpose of grinding the paint off, which I didn't do with the door, because it didn't, the gaps weren't that horrendous on the door as it happens, the gaps are quite bad on the boot lid, is to, so you gap in against fresh metal, so when you come to paint it, it'll be okay. So we're looking sort of about a 6mm gap, or thereabouts, between 5 and 6mm gap. And what I've found works nicely is dividers like this. So with both points in, with that point back turned backwards, so it's just a flat end sticking out of it. And then you can use that to find the gap you're comfortable with. We like that gap there. If we compare that to the door gap that we've got over here, that's there or thereabouts where we're at with the door gap. So just about there. So we can use that as a gap, and with the little thing in the middle, sort of lock that in place. And then simply using the guide. Let's get this to stop focusing. So using that against the one edge, we can scribe a line down where we want our gap to be. So that gap down there is a little tight, but not too horrendous. But down here, you can see we're way off. So that needs tightening up, that needs widening out there. And the opposite is true over here. This side is tidy, but up here is a bit tight. And that's not because the boot lid's on wonky, because we've got the gap to the scuttle nice and straight along there. So that's the gap to get straight first on the hinges, and then the rest we can work with. So we'll start doing that. I think we'll start on this side first. Alright, I'm hoping you'll be able to see that. So you'll see a scribe line just there. I can see it quite clearly. It's not coming up on camera. I think you can, yes, there are. If I mess with the light, you can just see the scribe line. So the idea is simply take a grinder to it, back to there. Now, it's quite a lot of material, but that's what we need to do to get that gap looking tidy. And we'll use a 40 grit flap disc for that. I believe that's what we got in here. Yes. So now what you'll see is revealed is the different pieces of the boot lid. So you've got the inner structure in the middle there, the outer skin there, and the fold over bit there. So the idea now is to clamp these together and weld these back into place. Now, and carefully, but if we close the lid down, you'll see now we have a nice, tidy, consistent gap down the edge there. Now, of course, as we weld this, we will lose some of this, but the trick is to have the welder up fairly high, so all three layers all get burned together. Now, this is something we do very, very slowly, otherwise the end of the boot lid will curl over horribly. And also all sorts, because you'll get the shrinkage on the end here, and it'd be just the same as using a pinch shrinker, like a shrinker stretcher on the edge, which will sort of put a bow in the boot lid. It's not too horrendous because there's a shape which shapes over the edge anyway there, but of course we don't want to go messing that up too much. So the next step is spot this together and go very, very slowly. Now, previously when I've done this, I've used air to cool each weld, but I've moved away from doing that to letting the welds cool naturally, because the air hardens the weld. As it cools it, it hardens it even further, and cooling it down any faster doesn't really help as far as I can tell. Leaving it cool naturally works better. It just means everything has to be an awful lot slower. Right, we'll let that cool down now fully. So it's not roasting hot, as I can touch it, and it's a cold day, which helps. but leave that cool down, which is doing fairly rapidly to be fair because it's a cold day. And then we'll crack on with the next stitches. So from here on in, I'm going to just add to each blob and just connect the dots. Right, where they're cooling down, I'll show you where we're at with the welder. So you can see I'm turned up a fair bit more than I normally have. These are about 12 o'clock, just past. So these are almost quarter past now, sort of, if you like. So they're turned up quite high. And the idea for that, as you can see where we're connecting these have got to weld all 3 layers together with some decent penetration, because when we come to grinding these back now to flush, we want the weld to still be there to hold the skins together. You can see now that's already cold to touch, or warm to touch, but not, I can grab hold of it tight. But so it's just cooling down quickly enough, but we don't want to go too fast. Nice and slow saves the grief later on. And if it does bunch up a bit on the ends, because we've let these to cool down gently, we'll be able to give them a bit of hammering to stretch them back out again, which, because we're doing it slowly like this, it makes that possible. Right, so please excuse the noise of the welder in the background. So what I've been doing while I'm waiting for this to cool down is I've got a scribe in over this side ready for when we work on there. It's just find something to do, to be honest. And I've also been planishing or hammering these welds together to stretch them back out again, so that we don't lose our boot shape too much. So you can see that it's dipped a little bit in places just there. For example, that's sort of curved down just a bit more. So a bit more hammering on there, stretch those out, and we'll bring that back in line. Okay, so that's this side scribed up and cut back, or ground back to the line, ready for welding. So we can crack on now. This side has cooled down a bit, or a lot now. That's nice and stone cold now. We can crack on with getting the next lot of welds on that. Alright then, so where are we at? We've got all our welds seamed along there now. So that's all back as one single piece and not looking too bad. The curvature over is pretty consistent with the way it was. Let's give it close that down. You can see that's curving nicely with the body, and we've got a nice gap we can work with. So the trick to having, or why that is, because the weld is turned up nice and high, it is penetrated nicely, so it's not blobs all over the place. And again, slowly. Now you will have noticed I've made a start on this side because it's just something to do while I'm waiting for the welds to cool down. I hate being idle, so and rather than rush the other side, it's better to crack on little bits here and there. So the next step is to grind this flat. So what I'll do, I can work on both sides together now. Next, I'll do the next run of lines on that, and then get the grinder and grind this flat against this plane and against that plane, which is not very much to grind off on that side, thankfully, because it's a bit difficult to get a grinder in there. And then that'll just leave us our little wibbly wobbly edge, which we can then go back over and scribe again and just tidy that up. The other thing you'll notice is how little the heat has travelled into the boot lid, and that's because you're going slowly. Now it's no different to when I used to use the compressor to blow with the blowgun to blow it off. The heat would always travel about that much. As long as you're doing a dab at a time, leaving it go, leave it cool all the way. Righty ho, so in that clip you'll have seen me skipping between the two sides of the boot, grinding this one down, so grinding this face down and grinding this face down as well. So that leaves us with a jagged edge there, and in between miles I've started stitching this together on this side as well. So mostly it's just so we can crack on and get on with something. So this side is being stitched and cooled, left to cool down while I work on that side. Just more efficient way of working. And we latch it down. You can see got a nice boot line there coming up. So what we need to do now with this is I'll get a Sharpie, mark along the edge here, and then use our scribe then to scribe where we're going to grind to. So you'll see a Sharpie line down there now, and what that'll help with is when we use our scribe now, it'll give us a more definite line to run to, which hopefully you can see that. However, you can see it just there, look. Right, so you can see now a nice sharp edge for us to grind up to, and we should be, because the welder's up on nice and high, quite comfortable to grind that back and not split the seams again. And there we have a nice pin sharp line down there. So this is obviously a square edge on this now, so we'll take the grinder very gently just to round the edge off, but won't get too carried away with it. You can see how much better that looks now than it did before. That is nice and pin sharp. So same here. This is exactly what I'm going to do on this side. I'll crack on and finish that off camera, but before I do that, I'll just show you quickly how to round off these edges, and it is just a gentle run on the grinder over it and touch up with the file. The file is important because you've got a lot more control with the file to get it to be nice and dead straight. So hopefully this will show up that you've got a nice sort of rounded edge on that now. Looks like it's been folded over, and edges will come up lovely and all nice and straight. So I'll crack on now with that side, finish that off, and we'll come back to the finished article. There we have it. Our boot lid is now fitting very nicely indeed. So you see I've just touched up everything with a DA sander, bit of 40 grit and DA just to clean the edges up. You see nice sharp lines now everywhere. All across the back there, up into the corner there, and back down on this side. All nice and sharp and correct. So I'll you can hear the rain coming again. I will chuck a bit of Halford's finest primer on that and show you what it looks like with a bit of paint on it. Right, there we go. So now with a bit of paint either side, you can see the lines are nice and defined and crisp and even around. All the way around the edges there as well. Wanted to have mentioned on the stripes how hideous they are. Maybe I should keep them. No, I'm joking, they are going. So there's the around again, and nice and crisp down there. Now at the moment the rubber's been taken off, obviously because I've painted it. You can see how, may not show up on the camera so much, but the boot lid is dipping slightly now compared to the rear scuttle. But with the rubbers in, it just brings it up enough to bring that nice and flush. So another successful job knocked off the list. Okay then, that's another one done. So we've got the boot lid fitting nice now. The edges all fitting nice and smooth to each other. That around there is nice, and a nice sharp line. Now, after watching the footage I've taken to do this, when the camera's close to this looks a lot wider than it actually is. So that's why I've sort of taken this angle a bit further away, so you can sort of stand back a little bit and see that the line is nice, whereas before that was way too tight and it just didn't look right. But now it's spot on. Both sides are the same, nice even gap all the way around the back as well along the scuttle. So once painted, that should look nice. Like I've said previously, because I'm painting it white, the gaps need to be really sharp. If it's a dark colour or dark grey or black, then the gaps don't really show up that much. So white's easier to get what looks like a nice finish. You don't have to be so perfect with the long panel finish, that makes sense, than you do with black, because black is like a mirror, but white does show up panel gaps. So it's a trade-off one way or the other, whichever you want to look at. So thanks for watching. Again, thank you for your comments. Thank you for the extra likes in response to my plead for likes. So thank you for doing that. And please do subscribe if you're not already. Like I say and say again all the time, it does make a huge difference. So see you on the next one.